Hey everyone, how's it going? I am Xeracon and I am back once again. Today I want to talk about collecting, specifically getting started with collecting. Some time ago, a friend of mine wanted to start building his own gaming collection, and while I wasn't able to help him much at the time, I hope this video will help people who want to start a collection of their own, partially using my own experiences. I'll be going over some specific cases, but the general ideas should apply regardless of what you're trying to collect. But without further ado, let's dive right in. The first piece of advice I want to give is to know what you want to collect. More importantly, be specific about what you want to collect. It might seem like a no-brainer about knowing what your collection is going to be, but if you're going to get into something that's massive, being vague can make things more difficult. For example, if you want to collect Batman stuff, there are comics, films, TV shows, video games, action figures, Lego sets, and more. So do you want to focus on one particular area, or try to encompass the franchise as a whole? Even if you wanted to just do comics, is there a specific era you're interested in, like Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, or Modern? Do you want trade backs, or are you fine with graphic novel collections? These are the kinds of things you need to consider. The larger a franchise, the more stuff there is to collect. It can be fine if you don't really care though. If you don't really have any goal and just want to collect whatever catches your fancy, that's completely fine. Now, the next point I want to make is probably the most important one I can make in this entire video. That is to not spend more than you can afford at a given time. If you have bills or expenses coming up, you should not be using the money to pay those bills to expand your collection. If you need groceries, you should not be using your grocery money to buy collectibles. If you have a family to support, do not be spending the money you need on this. You should not be going to your savings or retirement funds to buy these things. If you take nothing else from this video, please take this at least. The reason I didn't put this point at the beginning is because the danger to do this isn't when you start collecting. You're probably at your most rational when you have nothing, but once you start collecting and amass more items in your collection, you'll likely have the itch to make it bigger. You'll see something that's very enticing to get, and if it's rare or hard to find, that makes buying it even more tempting. However, going into debt or failing to pay your bills on time is not worth this one purchase. Trust me, I know how tempting it can be. Here's something that you can use to help you control that impulse to buy right away. Check how many listings for the item you want there are. If there are at least 7, maybe even 10, you can definitely wait to buy it. But what if there aren't 7, you ask? Well, ask yourself how you'd manage if some emergency came up and you needed the money that you just spent the cash on. I think you'd be able to weigh things out. But this point isn't to scare you or keep you out of collecting, but to warn you of the temptation that's likely to come once you start. The next point I want to make ties into the first one, and that is to take advantage of resources online to help you find what you're looking for or to help you meet your goal. By that, I mean use websites that have lists or categorize the items in a particular collection. This is very helpful if you're trying to get all the items in a series or for a collection as a whole. For example, I used one site to make note of all the official Metroid merchandise released, so I knew what I wanted to look for and what was missing in my collection. It helped a lot. In a similar vein, there was another site that had lists for different Batman figure series that I used to find the ones that I wanted. You're likely to find similar resources for what you want as well, so do a web search and look for websites or forums that will have the answers you're looking for. And if you find a forum or group that has the information you need, take advantage of the knowledge, but don't feel obligated to directly engage with them. Now, after you start building up your collection, you might start to feel discouraged because a certain amount of time has passed and it hasn't grown much, or think it's insignificant compared with others. But avoid such thinking. There are 2 reasons why those don't matter. Reason 1, it takes time to grow a collection. Unless you have a net worth with 6 or 7 digits, you're not likely to spend a lot of money so soon into your collection, which is a good thing if you go back to my second point. It might take a few years for your collection to truly flourish. Going back to my Metroid collection, it took me at least 4 years before it was at a point that I could personally call it respectable. But it was cool to see it grow from having just some of the games, to all the games, to a few pieces of merchandise, to many pieces of merchandise, and it's still growing to this day. In fact, I recently purchased some of the Famicom Choco Keshi figures, so don't feel like you have to rush. The other reason you should avoid feeling discouraged is because your collection is unique. You might not be trying to get every single item in whatever you're collecting for. That means that you have made the conscious decision to choose what's going into your collection. It's tailor-made to your tastes and interests, and that's something no one else can do. I think this is something that can really apply to people who are building up their physical video game libraries. Some people might have about 17 or so games for a console in their collection, and then see people online with hundreds of titles in theirs, but they should not make comparisons. Like I said, their collection is unique because they selected what goes into it, and similarly, your collection is also unique. You don't have to haphazardly just buy stuff to boost your collection size, nor should you. It's just going to be throwing money away for something you don't want. Now, I want to quickly discuss having multiple collections because chances are you might have a variety of hobbies and interests. As a result, you might want to have several different collections. This is perfectly fine, but you might want to properly balance out how you go about collecting. Referring back to my first point, knowing exactly what you want to collect will really help out here, so you have an idea of what you want one or more of your collections to look like. Something I personally do, though you don't have to do this, is to have one collection be your primary collection. That is, this is the one that you will put the most financial resources and attention into. For example, going back to this, Metroid is my primary collection. That's the one I've built up the most, so if I see a good opportunity to get something for it over, say, my comic book collection, I'll do that. It's not like I won't buy whatever comic I was interested in, it just has a lower priority, so I'll wait before I buy it when the time is right. That's what I'm getting at. Before I wrap things up, I want to leave a few bonus tips for you. These aren't anything major, but just some additional food for thought. Actually, the first one is pretty important. That is, have fun. If you're not going to enjoy collecting, why do it? This is a journey that you're undertaking, so if it isn't pleasant, why sink time and resources into it? The second tip is going to be an inverse to my second point earlier on. This is only going to be for those who exercise financial responsibility. If you see something that is quite rare to find for your collection and you have the means to buy it without any financial setbacks, snap it up. I remember looking online for the Eugene SRDX Metroid Zero Mission Samus figure, and I saw it once at one point but couldn't afford it. It was bought soon after. I saw another listing pop up months later. I had the means to buy it at that point, so I went ahead and bought it. I have only seen it being sold once more and never again after that. If I had missed it at any of those other times after the first one, I would be kicking myself to this day. So if you're in a situation like that, again, if it's financially viable, don't miss your chance. My last tip is going to be a slight warning, primarily for those going into more niche interests. While going for something that's smaller or less mainstream means there are fewer things to collect, that might also mean that it could be more expensive to collect for. For example, the Nintendo Virtual Boy has the smallest Nintendo game library, maybe even the smallest library in general. Yet the cost of the games for it can be expensive, so know what you're getting into there. But that will do it for today. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, I appreciate it, and thank you to everyone who came to my live stream a few weeks ago. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comments below. Share your tips or strategies for collecting as well as the collections that you're building. So until next time everyone, I am iamxeracon signing off, have a good one, and happy collecting.